Welcome to Archetypes of the East. Today we're looking at Hexagram 60, Limitation. Limitations, setting boundaries, and using moderation. In order for there to be true freedom and order, it's important to establish clear rules and measures that are appropriate. Defining limits in all aspects of life helps maintain one's well-being. In all aspects, there must be appropriate measures for relationships, behaviors, habits, and consumption. The Oracle teaches self-control, prudence, following guidelines that protect rather than restrict. Without these limits, every aspect of life would descend into chaos. Limits are not there to oppress you, but provide stability and a framework for order, discipline, and the basic stability for communities to function. Hexagram 60 consists of the trigram of water over lake. This represents a reservoir, a body of water with a defined edge. In the I Ching, its original name in Chinese refers to the joints of a bamboo stalk. It teaches that form is what gives strength. Without the joints, the bamboo would be a weak, hollow tube. Without the bank, the lake would be a swamp. This is the principle of the essential border. The Oracle says, constraints create focus. If you have infinite choice, you have zero direction. By defining limits in your time, your money, and your energy, you actually maintain your well-being. Limitation is not a prison, it's a vessel. Appropriate measure is the key word of this hexagram. The Oracle warns galling limitation must not be persevered in. If your rules are so strict that they gall, which means to chafe or to suffocate the spirit, they will eventually break. The goal is moderation, not miserliness. A reservoir that is too small overflows. A reservoir that is too closed turns stagnant. In career, this is scope management. Knowing exactly what you will and won't do to ensure that the project stays powerful rather than diluted. In relationships, it's the healthy boundary that allows intimacy to thrive without enmeshment. You cannot have abundance without a structure to hold it. The key or energy of this hexagram is rhythmic, structured, and contained. The atmosphere of Hexagram 60 is disciplined and economical. It feels like a well-composed piece of music. It has a tempo and a key. It is the relief of knowing exactly where you stand. The image of Hexagram 60 states, water over lake. Water over the lake, the image of limitation. The superior one creates numbers and measures, and examines the nature, virtue, and the correct code of conduct. This is the hexagram of setting the standard. This represents the power of quantification. Don't just say, I'll work hard. Say, I will work for 4 hours. Giving things a number makes them manageable. Boundaries must be based on reality and not arbitrary rules. You must examine what you will actually handle before you set a limit. The judgment of Hexagram 60 states, limitation brings forth success. Unreasonable or galling limitation must not be persevered in. A lake can only hold so much water before it overflows. The bank is the limitation that creates the body. In the I Ching, this teaches that success is a byproduct of selectivity. This is the strategy of the defined scope. It teaches that yes only has value if no is a real possibility. Limits are necessary for success. If limitations are too harsh or galling, they will eventually collapse. The Oracle says, don't build a prison, build a reservoir. If your rules, that could be your dieting, your budget, your schedule, if they're unreasonable, they will cause a blowout. But if you measure and draw up plans, you create a stable routine that protects your well-being. The secret power of limitation is knowing how to say no to the clutter, and so you can say yes to the core of what actually matters. Perfectionism in the I Ching is a trap. Constraints like deadlines and fewer resources actually drive innovation. This is a warning against analysis paralysis. For artists and professionals, the box of limitations is where creativity explodes. If you have too much scope, you lose your edge. The Oracle suggests embrace the deadline. Use restraints as a creative plan rather than a punishment. In career, this is the minimum viable product, limiting the features to ensure the function is perfect. In relationships, it's the gentle guide rail, like no work talk at the dinner table. When people know your boundaries, they stop walking on eggshells because the rules of engagement are clear. This hexagram is the realization that focus is sacrifice. The I Ching says, limitation leads to success, but don't be unreasonable. If you stifle yourself with galling rules, you will collapse. Set practical deadlines and draw up plans to create a stable routine. Use the pressure of your constraints to fuel your creativity. In relationships, set gentle guide rails so others understand your limits. Boundaries are support structures, not walls. By defining what is beneficial, you save your energy for what truly matters. A changing line 1. Not going out of the courtyard brings no blame. Line 1 is the base of the inner trigram of lake. In the I Ching, the courtyard metaphor represents your immediate world, your private thoughts, your home, and your current capacity. Before a reservoir can provide power, it must first be filled. This is the strategy of initial containment. It teaches that success often starts with the things that you choose not to do. In this circumstance, it's best to exercise caution. Remain in one's familiar sphere of influence. The oracle says, the door is closed for a reason. If you rush out before your plans are mature or before you have the necessary structure, you will dissipate your energy into the void. By not focusing on external activities, you allow your internal pressure to build. This is without blame because staying put is a conscious choice, not a failure of your nerve. Do not push boundaries beyond your influence at this time. This is a warning against premature expansion. You may feel the itch to act, to speak, or to start a new great endeavor, but line 1 of Hexagram 60 is about setting the first limit on yourself. The oracle suggests know your own yard. Master what is within your reach before you reach for what is beyond it. In career, this is the non-disclosure phase, working on your project in stealth mode until it is defined enough to survive the market. In relationships, it is processing internally before bringing an issue to the other person. By staying in the courtyard, you ensure that when you finally step out of the courtyard, you do so with full weight. This is the quiet phase. It's the realization that privacy is protection. The I Ching says, do not go out of your courtyard for right now. Remain in your familiar sphere and exercise caution. There is no blame in staying put. Avoid external activities and don't try to push boundaries before you have a solid foundation. Use this limitation to conserve your energy and refine your plans in private. Good fortune comes to those who know when the door should stay shut. A changing line 2. Not going out of the gate and courtyard will bring misfortune. In the I Ching, line 1 was the inner door, your private life, but line 2 is the outer gate, your public life. While line 1 required internalization, line 2 is the moment the reservoir is full. If you don't open the gate now, the water will turn stagnant or the dam will burst. This is the strategy of the decisive launch. It teaches that caution has an expiration date. Inability to move beyond one's familiar space is excessive, which is detrimental to the seeker. The oracle says the window is open, but you're still hiding. If you continue to refuse to engage, once the conditions have turned favorable, you aren't being disciplined, you're being fearful. This is excessive isolation, and this leads to misfortune because the opportunity passes you by while you're still checking your plans. This is asking you to step out of your comfort zone when the time comes. This is a warning against perpetual preparation. You can become addicted to the safety of your courtyard. The oracle suggests watch the water level. When the pressure of your potential reaches its peak, limitation means directing the flow, not stopping the flow. If you stay inside now, you miss necessary actions that cannot be recovered. In career, this is the perfectionist who refuses to launch their product because they are busy improving it for the 100th time. The market has moved on without them. In relationships, it's withholding your feelings long after the moment of true sincerity has arrived. Success in line 2 is found in taking the step across the threshold. This line is the realization that safety can become a symptom. The I Ching says not going out of the gate right now brings misfortune. You are over-limiting yourself by clinging to immediate comforts. This excessive isolation is detrimental and is causing you to miss opportunities. You have prepared enough. The time has come to engage. Break the limits of your fear and step out of your comfort zone. If you don't act now, your energy will stagnate. Open the gate and let the flow begin. A changing line 3. One who knows no limits brings nothing but lamentation. One only has themselves to blame. Line 3 sits at the peak of the inner trigram of lake. In the I Ching, this is the danger zone where the seeker is so intoxicated by their potential that they forget to set a limit. This is the strategy of the hard reset. It teaches that if you do not limit yourself, the universe will limit you through disorder and disappointment. One is living without appropriate limitations, leading to disorder and disappointment. The oracle says you're leaking energy. Whether you are exceeding your capacity into burnout or ignoring rules for self-gain, you're creating a lamentation for yourself. This is the spill that leaves the reservoir empty. You cannot blame the wind and the rain. The limit of your character was simply just too low. Honest communication will help illuminate the problem without blame. This is the safety valve. While the consequences are your fault, the way out is not through self-flagellation, but through honest assessment. Admit that you're overextended. By illuminating the lack of structure, you can begin to build the bank back up again. In career, this is the scope creep, where you said yes to every request until the project collapsed. Now you must limit your promises to save your reputation. In relationships, it is the lack of boundaries that led to a resentment. Lamentation is the alarm clock that tells you that it's time to set a new rule. This line is a reality check. It's the realization that no limits equals no power. The I Ching says, because you know no limits, you have cause to complain. You are exceeding your energy into burnout or ignoring rules for your own gain, and you have only yourself to blame for the resulting disorder. Stop the leak immediately. Use your honest communication to illuminate where the boundaries have failed. Don't hide the mess, address it. You cannot have success without self-restraint. Build your dam back up before you drain your soul completely. A changing line 4. Contented limitation brings success. Line 4 is the first position of the outer trigram of water. In the I Ching, this is the minister who has learned the lesson of the lake below him. While the previous lines struggled with too little or too much, line 4 finds the harmony of the dam. It teaches that when a boundary is correct, it doesn't feel like a constraint, it feels like a support. This is the strategy of the sustainable flow. The correct middle way of measuring limitation is found. This is the freedom that comes with a healthy routine. The oracle says, you have found your stride. Because the restrictions are neither too loose nor too strict, they lead to fairness and success. You're no longer fighting the rules, you are resting in them. This contentment comes from the realization that your limits are actually protecting your energy and your resources. One no longer expends their energy or resources because it is correct. This is a warning against over-optimization. You don't need to push for more or loosen up for fun. The current measure is comfortable and appropriate. The oracle suggests stay the course. When you find a budget, a schedule, or a boundary that works without chafing your life, you have achieved the highest form of discipline. In career, this is the flow state where your processes are so well defined that you can produce maximum output with minimum stress. In relationships, it is the established understanding where both parties feel secure because the limits are fair between both of them. Success is the quiet joy of a well-regulated life. This line is the realization that order is freedom. The I Ching says you have found a contented limitation. This brings success. Your boundaries and routine are comfortable and appropriate, not too tight and not too loose. Because this middle way is correct, you are no longer wasting energy or resources. You are content to live within these healthy restrictions because they support you. Stop searching for a better way. You are currently aligned with the nature of virtue. Enjoy the peace of your measured life. A changing line 5. Sweet limitation brings good fortune. To go forth in this way brings honor and praise. Line 5 is the ruler of the outer trigram of water. In the I Ching, this is the most favorable position. Unlike the galling limits of line 6 or the ignored limits of line 3, line 5 represents the internalized law. It teaches that the only rules that truly work are the ones that the leader or the seeker follows first. This is the strategy of the quiet authority. Practicing moderation fosters order. Self-discipline earns recognition and allows autonomy. The oracle says your conduct is your command. When you limit yourself according to a moral compass, you don't need to enforce anything on others. Your moderate behavior stems from an inner order that is so attractive it earns honor and praise. You are setting an example that others adopt out of respect and not fear. Each person lives by their own rules and does not impose them on others. This is a warning against moral superiority. Limitation is sweet only when it is self-imposed. If you try to force your limits on others, you move back to galling limitation. The oracle suggests respect the margin. Where one's rights end, another's begin. True social abundance happens when everyone manages themselves. In career, this is the manager who is first to cut their own budget or stay late to hit a deadline. This self-limitation is what makes the team willingly follow the rules. In relationships, it's managing your own triggers rather than policing the other person's behavior. Good fortune is the result of being the change you want to see in the system around you. This is the line of leadership of self-mastery. It's the realization that restraint is influence. The I Ching says sweet limitation brings good fortune and honor. By limiting yourself based on your moral compass, you earn recognition and praise. Do not impose your rules on others. Instead, live by your own. Your self-discipline creates a reciprocal boundary where everyone's rights are respected. This inspirational example is the correct measure for abundance and order. Go forth with moderation, and the world will esteem you. A changing line 6. Bitter limitation persevered in brings misfortune. Regret vanishes when one realizes their error. Line 6 is the extreme of the outer water trigram. In the I Ching, this position represents a rule that has been pushed past the point of utility. When the limit becomes bitter or galling, it ceases to protect the water and it begins to choke the life out of the system. This is the strategy of the strategic relaxation. It teaches that rigidity is not strength, it is fragility. This line is talking about the danger of extreme strictness. Excessive or painful limits cause misery. Understand the distinction between healthy discipline and oppressive authority. The oracle says, the bow is pulled too tight. If you persevere in a regimen that is painful or joyless, whether that's a budget, a diet, or a management style, it will lead to misfortune and a snap. True power knows when to allow space. There is a saving grace in this line. While line 6 is a warning of misfortune, it offers a way out. The moment you recognize that your standards are impossible and choose to change, the negative energy within disappears. The oracle suggests forgive the excess. Acknowledge that you are too hard on yourself or others. This is the correct measure that restores harmony. In career, this is the burnout point where a leader must relax the deadline or reduce the quota to save the team's sanity. In relationships, it's dropping a demand that has become a source of misery. Success is reached not by clenching a fist, but by opening the hand. This is the line of the breaking point. It's the realization that cruelty is not discipline. The I Ching says your limitation has become bitter and galling. If you persevere in this extreme strictness, you invite misfortune. Stop oppressing yourself or others with impossible rules. Recognize your error and change your approach. The moment you relax the grip, your regret vanishes. Distinguish between healthy structure and suffocating authority. Choose mercy over rigidity to keep the dam from bursting. That concludes Hexagram 60. I hope that you liked the video if you found it helpful in understanding this hexagram. Subscribe to follow the series along, and next we'll look at Hexagram 61, Inner Truth, Sincerity. See you soon.